Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Community Commons Changemakers Gathering. It's a monthly virtual coffee for us women to get together to talk about courage and change making and building connections with people not only across the country of the United States, but across the globe. And today we're reporting in all good things from South by Southwest that just wrapped up about a week and a half ago in Austin. And Marcela Chamorro is joining me, but we actually have a couple other people who went to South by Southwest too. So let's please engage and share what we can. So Marcela, I had the great pleasure of meeting in one of the sessions, as well as Laura, who is joining us here as well. So I'm sure she's going to have plenty to share alongside us. And I'm going to give you a quick sense of the festival. Then I'm going to throw it to Marcela. She's going to share some of her insights. It'll come back to me. I'll share some of my insights that are relevant to, really thinking about change making and how that happens in context to South by Southwest. So for those of you who haven't been, it's this massive festival. There's probably anywhere from 50 to 70,000 there on the streets walking around, and probably another 200,000 that we could tell watching virtually. I went as a nonprofit, so that was the lens that I looked at things as a nonprofit and a journalist and somebody who is pretty steeped in storytelling. But it is keynotes, there are meetups, there are breakouts that are usually presented by a panel. They're about an hour long, and then you have a 30-minute time period in between to head to the next location or stay where you are. So you're walking and you're hustling and you're basically going from about 8 or 9 in the morning until, if you wanted to do that with your schedule, till late at night, because there are movies and music and film and all kinds of things to catch. But I went to follow the climate track mostly, and culture and communications, and some other things around corporate engagement within cultural and issue areas, as well as some other things. And so I went as the founder and executive director of Earth Gives. We are working to build an ecosystem of environmental nonprofits across the country and perhaps beyond, to really boost environmental philanthropy beyond 2%, so that more change is possible. So I went with that lens in mind. But I had the great fortune to meet Marcela, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, the company that she represents, which is super cool, and tell a little bit about what she learned at South by Southwest.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So excited. This is my first time joining. So very excited to see the space that Rhonda has built. My name is Marcela. Again, I went to South by Southwest representing Replenysh, which is the current company that I'm in. I'm the circularity activation specialist. So I went there with the lens of where circularity is heading, where data and technology and what innovations, because it seems to me that this convention itself focuses on technology and innovation in every single aspect of it. So that was what I was interested in, seeing what brands and big corporates are working in to develop more data and more technology towards circularity, and specifically circularity of recyclable materials, which is what we focus on for big beverage brands, and really any brand that wants to get their material back into their stream with a whole circular economy working with community. So that is a little intro of me. I don't know if I should dive into my story and how I got there from the very beginning.
Yeah, why don't you hold on just one second? I would love everyone to introduce themselves. Yeah. So we understand, where you're coming from, what you're working on, what you're doing. So Laura, why don't you start, since we also had the great pleasure to meet you at South by Southwest.
Yeah, sounds good. Sorry, there's probably a bit of background noise. So I work here in LA at a company called Rocket Global. We are a freight forwarder for the live events industry. So it was actually a really combined kind kind of purpose of going to the conference, because my role covers ESG, live performance touring, and marketing. And so the ESG side of that is kind of greening tours, checking in with communities where we operate, because I guess the logistics industry itself is a big emitter in a lot of ways. It has a big impact, so we want to kind of reduce that. So it was kind of going for the climate change sessions, for learning, for networking, to find like-minded industry professionals, and really build a network of, particularly women would be great, of people who are lifting each other up and sharing ideas and sharing learning. But then also a part of that was we wanted to go to the, a few colleagues came out and we went to the music festival. So we were there kind of looking at emerging artists as well. So yeah, so it was a real mix, and it was very, very inspiring, and there was a huge amount learnt. And yeah, so I'm just still probably letting it all kind of digest and process, but very excited to kind of move forward and yeah, build a network.
Fantastic. Great to have you. Natasha.
Hi everyone, my name's Natasha. I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona. I currently work for a SaaS company. We do employee engagement surveys, but I am super interested in the climate space, and I eventually want to transition to a career in climate. So a little bit about me.
Thanks for joining us. Carissa.
Hi, I'm actually a student. I'm a marketing student at Grand Canyon University here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was connected with Rhonda through one of my professors. But yeah, I do content creation. I've done videography and photography for a long time. So love doing that. And graphic design, I'm getting more into. Super interested in UI and UX. But yeah, I didn't go to Southwest, but it sounds like a really cool event. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Great to have you. Phoebe, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll pitch it back to Marcela?
Hi, of course, I'm Phoebe. I am the head of marketing at Replenysh. I work with Marcela, and I was in tech for many years of my life, and health tech, and I decided late last year that I have to do a little bit more for something that I care a lot about, which is sustainability. So pivoted my career and started working at Replenysh to build circular infrastructure. We help brands and different businesses create circular networks and collection points, and making sure that they are turned back into raw materials for the supply chain one more time. So it's just been really fascinating, and with the privilege of meeting people like Marcela and Rhonda. So excited to meet you all.
Thanks, Phoebe, for joining us. It's been a great pleasure to meet you. So Marcela, yeah, tell us a little bit about your story and, and some of your takeaways.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think it fits in perfectly after everyone presenting themselves, because I feel like absolutely like all of us have been in the marketing industry, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm actually originating from a third world country. I'm originating from Nicaragua, and I'm very happy if any of you have visited and know where I'm talking about. Basically, it's this little country in the middle of Central America. And since I was very little, I was just so interested in sustainability, since my country, faced so many issues. But I came with education, and at home, it was very American. My mom was American, so she taught me many things, visited United States for so long that I could definitely detect from a very young age, the issues that we were facing in my country. Trash was one of them. So even when I was 13, I started caring about recycling and the environment and the plants and the animals. So I led a recycling program in my high school over there, where over there the market is actually very good for materials, meaning that you can go somewhere and sell it. So we raised funds to have more activities done in the school with that, and it was very cool to see that entire 2,000 students of my high school really trying to gather as much material as possible. I later on studied graphic design, Clarissa. I started graphic design, and then I started working in agencies as a creative director. I later moved to United States. When I moved to United States, to be honest, the marketing industry scared me. The size of my country versus the size of this country, it's a very large difference. So that made me actually encourage myself and be like, if you don't feel comfortable with doing marketing anymore, then maybe you should focus on sustainability, which has been your forever passion. So that's what I did. I knock on doors for recycling companies, and I have been working in the recycling industry since then. That will be my 5th year now. So I can consider myself a little expert on the recycling market of South Florida. But now that I work with Replenysh, I'm understanding a global, or like a more general vision of the marketing of the recycling market. I am working with Replenysh as an activation specialist, meaning that I am the touching point with all the suppliers or businesses or schools or hotels. They join our programs to collect material to get it to the correct facility, recycling material recovery facilities, to get it to the correct brand, like PB said, return the material as raw material for them to implement it into their streams. So yeah, building circularity within, and all of this is made through technology. Replenysh was actually a technology company for the first 5 years, because we worked hard on building strong systems that would maintain and track all data, not only because, of course, it's important for our clients, for us to show the results, how 0% of material collected and then in landfill, but ended in the right stream. But also with data, we are able to build trust. Right now, I think we all agree that the recycling market in the United States has just lost all credibility. It really doesn't matter where we're at. Nobody trusts that blue bin in the curbside anymore. So it is through our data and technology, through our apps that you are more than welcome to download and go through, that we build trust. But we also are empowering these businesses, empowering everyone involved in the circularity program. So I think that's, in a nutshell, start to finish, where I started and where I'm at.
And why don't you share, a highlight or two from South by Southwest? What was one of your big takeaways?
Well, the biggest highlight was that it was my first time, so it was very overwhelming. I think that it's an amazing convention. It does a great job to bring from everywhere in the world, parties interested in different subjects, and again, innovation and technology. I really enjoy the convention itself, and I'm coming back next year and really spending a good time on planning my time there. I only spent there a few days, and basically an entire day was spent in one of the sponsoring brands' house. So basically the convention will have several venues that are kind of managed by the brands that are sponsoring the program. So I decided to go to the Shell house because they were talking a lot about renewable energy, what they were working on. So I wanted to touch on that. So I did catch on a few conversations where they were talking about renewable energy and how they were going to make it more accessible to grow the market, or to grow the systems of electrical vehicles. I thought that was very interesting, because once I sat there, I never expect for them to focus so much on the consumer and the user experience, and how all the work that they're being put into, basically there's nothing we can physically see right now. Everything is backdoors. Ford, Shell, and other companies are working together to build a good infrastructure in order to expand the use of electrical vehicles. And I was impacted to learn that it was like their main focus is to make it as accessible as possible, not only monetarily, but like the user experience, how to make a transition from your, let's say 2010 radio to this now screen, where you can basically do whatever you would do with any, computer. And also how they're building the infrastructure and how to make the renewable energy get to the charging points and expand the charging points, as their biggest issue is that they don't have enough. So for me, my biggest takeaway on that is how any system that we are going to rebuild to create, either to transition from a linear economy to a circular economy, which is what we are trying to do, or just in order to promote more sustainable initiatives within communities,
are really born out of the community accessibility and understanding and convenience. We have, like, every single change, we have to take upon that as the most important fact. With Replenysh, when we work, as I was saying earlier, when we work in rebuilding this economy. So let's put an example right now, what we're doing in South Florida. We're knocking on doors of businesses and letting them know that now they have recycling accessible to them for free. And then we're knocking on doors to material recovery facilities and let them know that there's a better outlet for this material if it's picked up clean. Everything is done through our app again. So if we weren't able to do it free, then that would be one of our biggest obstacles. It has to be accessible for everyone. If we wouldn't be able to make it as easy as possible for them to go to collection point, to recycling and pick up through our app, again, it would be a big obstacle. So we understand as a company how important it is, again, to bring, to put the consumer first, to put the communities first, and understanding their needs and where they're at and meet them right there, to make our platforms as simple as possible for them to be able to engage with it and just be part of the program. We have a saying, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes to start to being part of our program. And that for years, what's the main focus? And it took a lot of work from our team to make that possible. So that was one of the big takeaways from that house. I also was part of a investing cocktail hour on that house, and it was thrilling to see so many young people just pitching back and forth. Like, they will pitch the exact same thing with the energy, just like little Shark Tank multiply by 10. It was super good to see, and really, because I was not pitching anything, honestly, I just stood there and listened and asked them questions about what they were planning. And it's so interesting to see, how all young minds are really leaning towards technology and data tracking for any idea that we'll have. But for me, it's also interesting that there were so many social entrepreneurs that we were looking that had more value to their offer. I feel like nowadays entrepreneurs always have to have people plan the triple bottom line in mind. That's where this country is going towards. I heard that $33 trillion a year is what we will be investing in sustainability by 2026. So for us, it's just thrilling. We're coming from a small company that we had our investing moment. Nothing for me. It's very interesting to see, like what Rhonda is trying to do. So many little entrepreneurs starting their career, really seeking that funding. So, and at Replenysh, as a small company, we're always open to work with any partnership. We work with small businesses, as I already mentioned. So we applaud this. We are happy about this. We think that growth is made through small businesses. And I personally think that change making, or us changing the systems and us having a significant change in the future will come from the private small companies. And then my last takeaway, I don't know if you want to join on this one, Rhonda, but it was actually in the Arizona University.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Natasha and I met actually online listening to something about composting, and didn't realize that she was living in Arizona too. So we're actually working on an initiative together around advancing composting here in the state. We figured that there's an opportunity with the change of administration, but policy change always takes a while. So thanks for that. And I know you're going to probably have some ideas, and Laura, you as well, on what to share. But if I might, share some of my takeaways. I'm going to start with a company that I've been a fan of for a very long time. The CEO of Patagonia was there, Ryan Gellert. Laura, did you go to that one? No. Okay.
Unfortunately, I was doing something else, but that one looked amazing.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite brands.
I mean, yeah, so Yvon Chouinard, who founded the company, has been a long time idol or whatever you would call him. And when I used to give speeches and presentations on corporate social responsibility, I would always have be Yvonne, and kind of that. And now that we know that he's basically given the company away to the earth, is really powerful, and I think sends such incredible kinds of different thinking for businesses and everybody to really say, how do we coexist on planet Earth, And so I'm going to start with some thoughts from Ryan Gellert. So he was interviewed by Katie Couric, and here's just a couple thoughts. Businesses can no longer hide behind externalities. The impacts of climate are something they face too, right? How do we change minds on profits? So the stories that we tell around that are key. Money is not the story. What is the impact? And I always love kind of like pivoting how we talk about something. So think about that. He said businesses have created the world's problems, so it also has the opportunity to fix them.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot down to, he talked about reframing how we think about ourselves as consumers of products or services. And I even heard this echoed from the gentleman there that was from Samsung, and he was in a breakout session, and I even talked to him after. Do we think about products as something that we own or consume? And I think even, probably most of you are aware that Patagonia, if you buy a shirt or pants or backpack or something, you can turn it back in and they will fix it. Well, Samsung was even thinking about the same thing. Like, do we get the phone? I'm a Samsung user of my phone. So do we get the phone and just use it, or are we just using it as a service, and that relationship with business continues on because you don't have it once and consume it? There's like an ongoing engagement. So it's a little bit different way of thinking about it. But so what Ryan Gellert said from Patagonia is they now have 110 people working full time on repairing items. And they believe that's an area of their business that they want to scale. So they're really thinking about circularity and reuse and upcycling and all those kinds of things. They also talked about open sourcing a no petroleum wetsuit. And, as I mentioned, I came at this kind of thinking from the nonprofit mind, but I'm thinking, where do nonprofits or where do even new initiatives thinking about open sourcing? And I thought that was an interesting thing to kind of noodle on. He also said that the most broken sector is agriculture, and that they see pretty significant upside in interrupting or disrupting the food sector. And for those of you who don't know, there is something called Patagonia Provisions, and they even announced that they had bought a company of one of the panelists that I listened to later on. It was, I think, 4 women talking about the food sector, and they bought this company called Moonshot. So good for her. She had an exit and really inspired a different way of making food products. So I think that's interesting. When you think of Patagonia, what do you really think of? Well, different verticals, different expansion opportunities, that kind of a thing. And he also then talked about needing a national movement. And so the thing that I'm a little torn about, we gather here as women, we know that we're change makers. The thing that I'm torn about is that the slowness of progress versus the need to change rapidly, especially when it comes to thinking about climate. And frankly, when it comes to talking about, women's issues and acceptance and, women getting paid what they deserve and investment dollars and women-owned startups, still only 2% of venture capital goes into, female startups. And, how do we scale that? Like, how do we remove the barriers and really engage? So Ryan Gellert talked about a need for a national movement, and it was interesting. So Katie Couric asked him, what are you most worried about? And it wasn't climate and it wasn't polarization, it was apathy. And I just think that's a really interesting thing to marinate on. It's apathy, like people not caring. And so how do we as marketing people or storytelling people or people, you know, pitching business, get people to care, you know? And it's a kind of an ongoing necessary need. But he did talk about grassroots change, and small things can become bigger things, and activism does make a difference. And we as women, we have a voice. Oftentimes we don't feel like we've got the courage to step forward and really say what needs to be said, standing up for others, standing up for ourselves. And so there can be power in that. So wrapping that up, that's kind of what Ryan Gellert said. I think it was interesting. I did go to a session on climate storytelling, and a couple of other things like corporate activism. And there were some interesting highlights there. Pitch your needs rooted in what's possible. So I don't care if you're a business or whatever. I think people gravitate to what you're making possible, right? The future, their hope, you know, the idea of hope, like we have possibilities of doing that. So I think that was an important takeaway. On the corporate activism, you know, there was conversation with like a Ben and Jerry's, Amalgamated Bank. I think Samsung may have been in that one. That we have to think about our stakeholders. You know, it's our communication message needs to come in all different ways, depending on the stakeholders, depending on the group that we're talking to. So that is really important. And when companies make a decision about where to get involved and where to speak up about something, to have diverse experiences in the room when you're making those decisions. So it's not just, you know, a group of white people gathered around the table, but when you're really thinking about, you know, whether you're speaking about you know, abortion rights, women's rights, you know, diversity, LGBTQ, whatever it may be, make sure you've got the diverse voices in the room when you're making those decisions. So that's really important. I'm going to come back to one of the probably most popular small breakout that I saw. It's called Inhabiting the Story of Future in a minute, but I'm going to hit some other things that stay on this thing. So Chef Jose Andres was a keynote, and that was fascinating. And I think one of the things that you might find interesting was that he said, I'm not known for being a chef or a restaurateur. I'm known when there's war or climate change and the impacts it's had on communities. That's what he's known for, you know? And so when we think about that, I thought that was powerful. He says, make room for more people at the table. That's somebody that definitely speaks to me. It's why I do these gatherings. I think when you're invited in to be part of a community, it's super powerful. I know that I made a point of saying hello to somebody in every space that I was in, and predominantly women, and they just really lit up and were lovely and welcoming to being talked to. So especially when you're in a space where it feels like you're kind of all aligned or you're there for the same reason, I think people really are seeking community and seeking connection. So don't be afraid to say hello and invite a conversation. I loved one of the chef's comments. People are not undocumented. They are part of planet Earth. So I just think, you know, drop that piece of wisdom, I think is important. And then in another Customers in Context, Social Science for Marketers breakout session, I love the line, what if you consider interventions versus solutions? So not the end all be all, but we are an intervention. We are trying to help you solve your problem. I love terminology. I love interesting words, and you'll hear more about that in just a second. Let's see here. When it comes to systems change making, systems change, again, on looking at products as a service, I thought was really interesting. And again, it locks in the relationship that you have with the customer. So how do you do that? And I believe somebody was prognosticating that repair and reuse is going to be huge and only grow. So Replenysh is definitely, I think, onto something. If we had the ready-made items to reuse, or the circularity, the packaging that a lot of people are trying to get rid of, or how do we use packaging that's already been used in some other way, would be profound. I'm almost done here. I spent a lot of time with ocean scientists in a couple different breakouts, and Laura, you probably did as well, and they were really profound, and I would say a little scary, and yet the power of the ocean, I think we often overlook, and we're thinking about planting trees when actually ocean science is really profound. And one of the things that they kept saying, just even when we're talking about technology and AI and all of that, is how we proceed is more important than what we actually do. So setting up sort of guardrails around how we go forward, the ethics and the integrity through what we're looking to do, I think is really important. So, and then one of the scientists said, we need not a silver bullet, but a silver buckshot. So I would say from that, and Laura and Marcela, my guess is that one of our community takeaways is that there's no one answer. It really does take a community. So I'm going to end on that note with that one breakout and share that, and then we'll open it up for questions. So back to the inhabiting the story of our future. This was a group of psychologists, Buddhists, different people that study world religions. It also included a gentleman named Doug Abrams, who wrote the book of Joy, which has been made into, I think, a documentary. It's the story of the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I had just started listening to it on Audible, so very profound, and he said a lot of amazing things. Stories are how we understand the world. We live in relationship, and yet we have a tribal reflex, us and them. But our empathetic brain doesn't trigger if we don't see people as other. So thinking about the idea of building a community. Yes, when I was first creating Earth Gives and Earth Gives Day, I was thinking about, okay, it's this day of coming together to invest in environmental and climate justice nonprofits across the country. But then I stepped back, because as is my nature, it is about bringing community together. And I'm like, no, we're building a community of Earth Givers who happen to come in first through this platform and then are match made to other organizations. We're the sort of connective tissue of not only the organizations, but the people who feel like they are compelled to do something, whether it is small businesses who want to adopt what Replenysh is doing or any other thing. So we are not individual, we are relational. Our superpower is to connect and organize. I loved what the Buddhist expert there talked about. She said, consider story dwelling instead of storytelling. Like, how do we dwell in story? We're saddled with stories imposed on us by family and lineage and all of those things, but we have the opportunity to speak our truth as women, as individuals, as change makers. So I think there's a lot of power in that. Leaders create a vision of what's possible, and community is our currency. So on that, I will throw it over to Laura. Maybe you can weigh in, and then we'll open it for dialogue and questions.
Yes, absolutely. I had a change of scenery because there's a little bit more background noise. So I thought I'd come into another room. I won't be as extensive as you guys, but firstly, thank you. That has been fantastic to listen to you both so far. And also, I think part of the reason and what I really got from attending South by was feeling really inspired by others and community. And it's actually exactly what I needed at that point. At the moment, we're really, for me, that's sort of how I personally feel passionately about the climate and about all sorts of environmental and social causes. And then there's kind of what we do as a business as well. And both of them were really uplifted by my time there, because there'd been a couple of weeks in the lead up to it where I'd almost felt a little bit, I'd just sort of been pulled down a little bit by kind of a little bit of that climate doom, I think, had caught up with me. And sometimes you come across people who sort of say, oh, it doesn't matter, don't even bother, it's the world's coming to an end, or that sort of level of where you're trying to keep the energy around keeping people engaged with the ideas and what can you do. And it sounds as though we maybe went to a few of the same sessions, because I was incredibly inspired by the oceanographers as well. And when they were talking about the ocean for climate solutions, or sort of coming together, or it requires us all to deliver on climate change. And I thought it was fantastic, because for us, in terms of the relevance of freight forwarding, we operate our shipments through ocean, land and air. And primarily in the States, that's trucking. So that would be kind of the land movements over the United States. There's a huge amount that goes by ocean as well. And I found it quite powerful hearing about the power of the ocean. And I can't remember exactly which session it was, but where they talked about kind of the power of the ocean, that if everyone just disappeared off the earth, the ocean would figure it out in a couple of hundred years. All of the anthropogenic emissions that are sitting in the ocean would be gone. And you sort of think, gosh, okay, well, in that case, we have the power to really slow things down, stop them, and turn around what we can. And so I found those sessions particularly motivating, and I wanted to I left with more questions about, I want to learn more about the ocean, and I want to sort of figure out, is it maybe that instead of, working around trees, which we do here, also maybe it's about going and understanding, can we be investing or supporting solutions through the ocean? And we do that. So here we connect with a group called the Clean Cargo Working Group. They try and find greener trade lanes and understand sort of how the freight industry can have less of an impact on the ocean. But I would like to understand more of the science around the ocean and what it can do. I found that I went organically with where I felt like going when I was looking on the days, what will I get the most out of today? And the climate change was sort of partnered with, to your points on the power of community. I went to the Female Quotient Equality Lounge. I don't know if anyone went to that. It was down at the Boathouse, and I regularly watch their videos. So on thefemalequotient.com, I can share the link. I can't remember, but they hosted this 2-day function down at this Boathouse, and they just have back-to-back sessions all day with fantastic panelists discussing very relevant topics. One of them was about an ESG framework and how we can sort of shift that and work together. So it was sort of great to go and have community and meet people there and feel inspired on that. So I agree that I think it's about working together. And I have felt, so I've been working for this company for maybe 8 or 9 months, and it has been really key to build partnerships in that time, because making a difference requires us all. And we have an interesting position in the market in that we're not asset based. So we don't own the trucks, we don't own the ocean liners, but we can influence. And so sometimes that's about influencing through asking people to do carbon offsetting. And we do that. We support various projects around the world. And sometimes that is through kind of social causes. So we do some partners with artists who also care about ESG causes, and we figure out a partnership where we support the causes that they care about, and we work together on that. So it's all about combining the power, because we could sit back and say, well, we'll do nothing because we don't own anything, but we don't want to do that. So I felt very inspired by the ocean stuff as well. And for me, I went to some women in music and how to change the touring industry. And that was fantastic as well. But yeah, I think in terms of climate solutions, and I walked away feeling, do you know what? No, something can be done. We can all stand together and we can lift each other up and make change and inspire others to do that.
Yeah, I believe that partnership, it's one of the key takeaways of what you mentioned. And I feel like partnerships, good partnerships that end up in good results come from this type of spaces that where we meet. Because as Lauren's talking, I'm already thinking of, and I already texted her separately, like of all the people that I need to connect her with, because it is possible, and it is possible only through partnerships. I kind of want to just jump in to give you like a little, positivity, a good example, a recent good example that just happened. So I don't know if you know, but I imagine Lauren knows about Ultra. So it's the Ultra Music Festival. It's one of the largest techno music festival of the world, really, next to Tomorrowland. So it's made here in Miami, and I was part of it. I volunteer my time to make sure that the sustainability program that they were having worked well, because amazingly, Replenysh is one of the brands involved in their mission home. And honestly, I mean, I that's where I saw partnership really, work, and like visually could see the success of it. So it was more than 4 or 5 brands working together. You have consultancy brands who are managing the sorting, you have another brand that is managing the bins, then you have like a Overpower brand that is managing the whole partnership itch, and then you have Replenysh that were caring about like where the material is going to go. But as I was there, I mean, Ultra is always done in a beach park. In this case, they were doing it in Bayfront, and I'm telling you, like, it could be as easy as just going like, whoop, to throw anything to the ocean. But I was there, and the recycling program for over 150,000 people that were there was working right. It was hard work. It was hard work through several nonprofits and businesses involved, but it's possible. The only comment that I want to have about Ultra, even though that, I applaud them for the work they did to recover material, is that they had an odd partnership with with Shane. That, going back to what Rhonda said about Patagonia, I mean, Shane, unfortunately, is one of like the most contaminated, fast fashion brands. But they're trying to redeem themselves now. And I think that, going back to something that Rhonda said about like it's not about the change that we're making, it's how we're making it. Like, it's the process, because I believe that if it's just like Earth is just like us and how we take care of ourselves, really, we are very, I feel like if we get mystical, I feel like we're very connected to it. Recycling is just us mimicking Earth. Earth recycles everything. Like you said, if we were out of here, if we just disappear, like Earth would perfectly grab all our buildings and just like make them into mulch and nurture their trees. Like, it's incredible. So by mimicking Earth and seeing us as what we are, humans, whenever we hear that saying of like, it's not about the solution of the illness, is about what you do to avoid the illness. So that's kind of how I see the infrastructures that we have to build to create like real change. It's not about, creating this huge boat that will go and pick up the entire Grand Pacific patch, because realistically, 8 tons enter the ocean every day. So it wouldn't fix it. We have to fix how we avoid plastic going in. And then after that, I think we can focus on like, okay, let's clean up the rest. But that was my jump in. And
that was
then
super well said. I love that. So good. I want to throw it open to anybody who wants to ask a question. I mean, Natasha, Phoebe, Carissa, if you've got any questions for anybody, or any of you, actually.
Yeah. Climate anxiety is real. And if anyone is feeling concerned and want a little bit more positivity, or would just want to, have some questions, jump in. Phoebe.
Yeah, I not really necessarily a question, but kind of chiming in on what Rhonda mentioned earlier, which is involving others and just kind of accepting, because everyone is on their own sustainability journey. And I think it's really important to accept them the way that they are and not to criticize, and just we're all at different places, and having another partner is better than someone who doesn't care. So meeting people where they are at and bringing them along, and educating as much as possible, sharing small things. I am currently taking classes at Berkeley Hospice School, and it's like Northern California, we have a really amazing network, and there's so many people in this Michael's certificate for sustainability program. So I get to witness firsthand how many people is trying to get involved. So really happy to see the community that we're kind of building here. Women especially, right? Got to help each other.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I love how you echoed what Marcela was saying, because the issue about the quote unquote not perfect sponsor is an issue. However, I think that we spend so much time criticizing that what I'd like to shift in our storytelling is really lifting up those who are doing good, because then when you just keep amplifying the good, then people, because I come from TV news, so the journalism ecosystem is all, challenging, and what we do, it's just negative, and and I don't think we're going to advance things by keeping sharing, amplifying those things. I think we're going to create a shift by bringing people together, like Phoebe said, and by amplifying the cool stuff that different companies and organizations and individuals are doing. So giving shout outs constantly, I think, is an opportunity.
Actually, I think you're all right. And I want to redeem myself. If you think about it, I just told you the successful story of Ultra, and the only brand that I mentioned was the one not doing a good job. So let me give a shout out to Bye Bye Plastic Foundation. Bye Bye Plastic Foundation is a nonprofit founded by Replenysh, the DJ. She's trying to reduce plastic waste in the music industry, because when you fill out those stadiums and you throw that, pump up party, then you're left with, an ocean of cans and bottles in the floor. So she saw that. She said that she was in Brazil, like giving one of the best shows ever. And then when people left, she was like crying because she saw the amount of waste. That's how it all started. So Bye Bye Plastic Foundation. Then you have Ascendant Events. They are focusing and bettering, again, the sustainability on events here in Miami. And she, Vivian, will be like she's the founder and the single operator of her company. And then she does amazing because, again, she handles the entire Ultra Music Festival and other music festivals program. And she does it amazingly through partnership, of course. Then you have us, Replenysh. We were there just to oversee the program. But really, we're going to be more involved in the back end. We're going to be involved in tracking that material down, and making sure that it gets to the right, that none of it ends in landfill. And then cleanvibes.org was the nonprofit or company, I think it was, managing the well sorting the material and making sure that the bins were used, and doing constant cleanups of the floor, and making sure that all the bottles and the cans thrown there will go through the right bin. So shout out to all those, including us, that we were
absolutely
right. And we really, I was happy. I have 100 pictures of me like next to like super full.
That's great. Well, I'm gonna ask. I mean, it sounds like there's some connections for you and Laura to talk about. Yes. So please do. That's what we're here to do. I think that I would love to get introductions to the nonprofits that are doing environmental stuff. Awesome. We did have a couple folks, groups from out of Florida that did participate in the past. We need them from every state and all across the country doing either local work or global work. We had several that were doing global work. And yeah, if there's any other questions, any other connections, anything you want to ask for, what you need, this is the safe space where we're going to invite that.
Well, I would ask for contacts, but I already got them, so I'm good.
Exactly, working together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll share your emails, or Replenysh, maybe Phoebe, if you want to stick in the website for how people can find out more about Replenysh. That would be awesome. Natasha, do you have any questions for us?
No questions, but I really enjoyed, hearing everyone's experience at South by Southwest. And I liked what you said about community, because I feel like that's so important. I'm taking a course right now through 1.5 Academy, and it's been so nice just, getting to interact with other people who really care about climate and, saving the planet. Because I'm sure like my friends are so tired of me talking about it all the time. It's great to like talk to other people, and then I'm learning a lot about carbon accounting. So that's been really fun. But yeah, I'm just excited to learn more, and yeah, I'm definitely going to check out Replenysh. I think what you're doing is incredible. I'm like, it's so funny. I literally just put my recycling bin out like right before this meeting.
But it's good.
I know we do need the systems change, because when only like 9% of items are recycled, but I think organizations like yours are going to change that. We're going to be looking at different models and different opportunities to reuse. Well,
Definitely.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, questions? Otherwise, we'll call it a day. I believe that next month we've got a gal from New Zealand who's going to be talking about a food system that she's disrupted. So looking forward to that. Obviously, with the time change, it's interesting for her and I to communicate.
Yeah.
But,
I'll definitely join. I'm from New Zealand.
So. Oh, are you? Well, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. She's got a real, and I think she was going to do it like a month ago, and then she had the cyclone and just like all this craziness. So yes, climate change is really impacting.
That's happening.
Yeah, it's really happening. And so, and in fact, it was funny because last month, the professor who spoke was in New Zealand when that hit, and she had to stay there. I think she was doing something about water systems or lecturing or whatever. And she's the one who had served as Obama's water policy advisor when he was in office. So yeah, it was like all these weird and odd connections to New Zealand, but we'll have her on next month, I believe, is planned. So if you know of other women who would like to be a part of this, again, climate is kind of just an underlying theme, but the idea is change making, in systems and looking at that. So there are other people who don't necessarily work in this field, but, can influence. Like we've got some folks from Apple and other places, a gal with Amazon. In fact, she reached out, and some others who work at nonprofits or work in fundraising or whatever it might be, some folks from Canada. And so, just shoot me an email, and, we're all in, and, I'm sure some great business, some connections, some change making is possible.
I am sure that I'm gonna blast you with a lot of girls that I have known in the industry, like in any industry, that they're always trying to make change. I have a friend that owns a company. Well, not a friend, she's actually my dad's boss, but has become a friend of the family, that her entire life has worked on technology and building chips and computers and all those. But until now, she's like, let's focus on making solar panels. And she comes from Taiwan, and they have a big factory over there. And for me to see them doing that big shift, like this, $1 trillion company doing this big shift, I think it will be interesting to hear a story from her. And many others that I'm going to throw to you.
Yeah, and if there were any that you bumped into at South by, please let me know. I just did a Zoom yesterday with a gal who's using mushroom waste and biochar to create bricks and building materials. She in particular wants to house the homeless, but there's all kinds of, profitable companies that are, she's a MIT grad and is working with another colleague from there. And yeah, there's like such amazing opportunities, I think, in front of us. So let's do it, ladies. Well, thank you so much, Marcela and Phoebe, for being great partners and coming together to share what you've learned, and for the rest of you for joining us. And just shoot me an email if you'd like to add additional people, and we'll see you around next month.
Yeah. Cheers with our beautiful cups.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.